Yeah, I miss that. I miss that a lot. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory trading cards.
I forgot about that art, the silhouette art for some of that. I remember that I had some toys from that movie. God, that movie came out 17 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy. And
going off the rails of a crazy chocolate train.
You know what? Since I know that this is important to you, I'm gonna jump into one here, and I'll just read it as I wrote it down, and it was the golden age of James Bond video games. If you are a James Bond fan, you know what I'm talking about.
All right, we're entering the video game portion. We're starting.
I see you out there, people, and it was just a lot of fun, you know, from Agent Under Fire to, you know, Nightfire and Everything or Nothing, from Russia with Love. You know, it was a good time. It was a good time to be alive. And there was some other trailblazers in this time period as well that stuck out to me last night when I was in the shower. And that is, you know, you can't talk about the Noughties and not talk about GTA 3.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you went there. I was just grabbing the trilogy of the original. Well,
get rid of San Andreas from that, but I was never a fan of San Andreas, but GTA 3, Vice City, some other, honestly, trailblazers. I mean, they truly they truly defined an entire decade. Kingdom Hearts, Resident Evil 4, as well as Batman Arkham Asylum. Now, those games, every game I just mentioned has been ripped off by another game at least once, but probably many times over. It's funny that you have the PlayStation 2 of Resident Evil 4. When I feel like I'm Lucas at the moment. That is the worst version of that game.
It's trash.
Yeah, the GameCube version is the best version of that game.
Yes, it is.
At least the way that it looks. They had to massively downscale that to port it over. That was my introduction to it
of all time.
Too
good. Remember, we talked about this one. Amazing. Started a console, started a generation. This honestly, I know you don't like Halo, but this was the first console shooter that became competent, because it was like 2001 when this came out. They didn't figure out how to do controls really. Do you remember? It's an Alien game on the PS1, and it was one of the very first games, if not the first one, to use the modern day look or walk with the left stick and look around with the right stick. It was an Alien game, PS1, and the reviewers, like, you can read the reviews, it trashes it. It said it's one of the most convoluted ways to control a character, and that it'll never serve. And it was a horrible game because of it. And then look at that, it's how you control everything nowadays. So
I would certainly include Halo under the, even though I'm not a fan because I was never an Xbox person, but I would put that on the list of trailblazers, things that were, you know, defined a generation and got ripped off like crazy. So,
yeah,
you know, you have the whole GTA thing, like I mentioned. Almost every month there was a GTA ripoff coming out, and really still is to this day. It's just not as common. I mean, there was the Scarface game, which was a great game in its own right, but the Scarface game. There was the Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. There was, you name it, there was so many. Mafia.
The worst
there was
one
just
would be Driver 3.
Driver 3 was a big one, but people really like Driver 3. So it's a very popular game. And so Kingdom Hearts was a little less ripped off, mostly because I don't know actually the reason why it really wasn't. Probably because you'd have to get some type of property like Disney.
Well, I do have to say
try
this,
to do it.
When the first Kingdom Hearts came out, I just remember saying, what the fuck? Because it was Disney characters with Final Fantasy characters.
Correct.
And we're so used to it now that it's whatever. But back then, it made zero sense to the point where I thought it would be funky. But then I
remember seeing those first trailers
in the first game because I was obsessed with that movie at the time. And it was it was really cool. And I was waiting for Toy Story to be in it forever. And I still haven't even played the one with Toy Story in it. So
well, that's weird. Very, very weird, especially because I did, back when it came out. So anyway, so Kingdom Hearts was a big thing. I guess you could say like Lego Dimensions could have been like a bit of a ripoff, even though gameplay wise it's not, just because they combined Lego and a lot of WB properties. And maybe there were some properties outside of WB as well. I don't know, but there was a lot of properties mixed together with Lego, so it was sort of two things colliding. Like Resident Evil 4, that was the first over-the-shoulder shooter of its kind, which is something that's still used to this day as the blueprint. And then, of course, Arkham Asylum. You mentioned Halo having creating what a modern day shooter is. Arkham Asylum created what a modern day combat system is, and still to this day games still use the Arkham combat system. But I don't think I have much else to say about that. I do want to mention something that occupied most of my time in the early 2000s or Noughts. And that is something that's called Habbo Hotel or Coke Music. Like Habbo Hotel was something that I was introduced to through my friend, and we'd go on there and we'd hang out and talk and stuff. And it's like a life simulator kind of thing where you could buy furniture and stuff, or in game apartment, hang out with people, have a job, whatever. You're playing with all real people, and the premise is that you're living in this giant hotel called Habbo Hotel.
Yeah,
and when it first started, it was specifically UK only. You could play it, but all the stuff with the money was UK. You're playing with a bunch of British people and Scottish and you name it. It was just everything to me until Coke Music came out, and Coke Music really took that spot from Habbo Hotel, and my friends and I all played Coke Music instead because it was just, I don't know, it hit at the right time. It was cooler. You didn't actually use real money in it. Habbo Hotel, you had to use real money. You basically would get points to buy things by buying Coke in the real world. And I have so many caps somewhere, who knows, that had all the little codes on it. And then, the code would either give you, 1,000 points in game or 10,000 points in game. Like, it varied. And I would always get so lucky and get the 10,000 all the time. And it was just such an experience of my friends coming over, and we'd walk up to the gas station and we'd buy vanilla Coke. And, that was the time where vanilla Coke first came out. And, it was just such a cool thing all together. And then we'd input the codes and see what happened, and we'd play on the game. And the thing that Coke Music had as well is that your apartments and stuff could be in different cities, like Sydney, Australia, or New York City, and all this kind of stuff. So you'd see that, out the window. And I don't know, it was just so cool. And Batman Begins came out in 2005, and there was like a whole like in-game marketing campaign for Batman Begins, so you could get Batman Begins posters in the game. And I don't know, it was just so cool. And it was the first Batman movie in a while, and we're just all so excited about it. It was a real experience. I miss it so much. Unfortunately, Coke Music ended up being turned into something else, which I think still exists to this day, but it's not good. It went from being like cool, like 2D kind of thing, to it being like full 3D, and it's just
Janky garbage.
I think it's called My Coke. Like, it became My Coke, and they were like, your points transferred over, and we were like, no thank you. And I didn't play it anymore. So they shot themselves in the foot, because I swear to God, even though it was mostly kids on it, I would still be playing it to this day. 100% if that was still a thing.
I guess you still have a few more, or you're a bit more nostalgic for some things in the 2000s than you thought.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see here. Oh yeah. And this was only a fraction of them as well.
And it's in a Pokemon tune. How fitting.
Yeah. So cool. Movies were huge at the time, obviously. It was the year of the Matrix happened in the 2000s, and 2003 was the year of the Matrix. You can go on Google and find the magazine title that called it that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the first Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, that is
the only good one.
All intents and purposes, a perfect movie, absolute perfection. And what's funny is I like a lot of them. I don't think they're all great. Like, the first one is perfect. There's not another perfect one in the series.
I think the second one's enjoyable, but past the second one, like I said, the third one.
You think so? But
At World's End was the first movie I ever walked out of the theater, and I didn't even finish it. I fucking hated like everything about that movie.
Well, I finished it, but I saw it in theaters, and then I was like, it's long and boring. And then I saw it at home, and I fell asleep when I was watching it again. And watching it as an adult, it's better. But watching the second one as an adult, I don't like it. So it's really weird, because I used to think that the second one was so cool, because it was the time period of dark things. Everything was dark and gritty, and Casino Royale, Batman Begins, the Dark Knight trilogy, like, you name it, that was the thing at the time, making everything dark and gritty. And so the second one became dark and gritty, and it was like, doesn't work for Pirates of the Caribbean as far as I'm concerned. I thought it did, and then I watch it now, and I'm just like, I don't like this. Like, I just went and rewatched them all a couple years ago, so that was an experience. But yeah, so there was that. Obviously this was like X-Men, Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and eventually the birth of Lucas's favorite thing, the MCU. And
so you're going to talk about movies that come out in the 2000s. You're going to talk about my favorite. You're not even going to mention that 2001 was the first Harry Potter movie?
I'm not done. So here's a ticket for Disturbia. I'm sure I have a bunch of other tickets in there too, but these were the two that fell out. This one, which crazy here. This was for a cinematic experience, as we talked about this. If you haven't watched that episode, click that up there. It'll take you right to the episode. And watch how I feel about Spider-Man 3, my experience with that movie. Yeah, so comic book movies were really finding their footing for the first time ever. You know, the Dark Knight trilogy, that was huge. As well as, this is a really funny one, slasher remakes. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
which is great.
So basically Michael Bay getting his hands on old slasher properties that he wants to put his own spin on, even though he wasn't the director or writer, he's the producer. It was his company, Platinum Dunes. Some were okay. Some weren't.
You know, and it's not even just horror. I mean, later 2000s were just littered with remakes or sequels. That was it for like 5 years. There was some
remakes were big, yeah.
There was some whack ass statistics.
Not so much sequels. Sequels is a thing now.
Well, here's what I'm getting at with this though. It was like 2009, I think. It was like the statistic where 97% of movies released that year were either a remake or a sequel. There was like nothing original. And like, that's my point. There was hardly originality for a few years in there. So
no originality at all. Yeah, no, just straight up remakes.
And then you would have the kids, like I remember my friend, he would always say, I like the remakes more because they're newer. And that was a mentality that younger people had.
Thanks, Josh. So yeah, in this, the Da Vinci Code was a huge book.
That was huge.
I adored the book. I did not like the movie, unfortunately. And then I read some of the other books. Like the Da Vinci Code's not the first one in the series of novels. The first one was oh my god, it was the one that they made it like into a prequel. And it was like at the Vatican. I can't believe I am blanking on this. Because that one really was the original one. Now there's been like 27 of them from Dan Brown. But yeah, like I read that Angels and Demons. So that was there, whatever. They every time they made a movie of it, any of them, it was terrible. I hate to say it. I love you, Tom Hanks. You're great casting, but it was terrible. And they made 3 movies with Tom Hanks, and now they have a TV show, which I have a little bit more faith in, to be honest with you. But whatever, it was huge. It was referenced everywhere. It was super cool today, so whatever. But yeah, you know, obviously the Harry Potter movies, the bulk of them came out in this period of time, which
I was gonna say it almost because the last movies were years 2010 and 11. We almost had them all in that time frame.
Almost.
Also, it was the year of a majority, so 2 of the 3 Star Wars prequels. It was Lord of the Rings. These were some really big things in the early 2000s movie wise. We had the one and only good Shrek movie. The first one came out. Love Shrek 1. It's a great movie. The
second one.
Do you like it more, or do you just like it?
I just like it.
Okay. Because the first one, I think, is just one of the best. Like watching that as an adult is such a treat. It's a really good Disney parody. It's so funny.
Yeah, Shrek was one of the ones that came to my mind as well when I was thinking of movies that were big from that period of time. It might have been the defining moment of DreamWorks, in fact. So
The only defining moment of DreamWorks,
um
basically. I guess a lot of people
I
like
don't
How to
know,
Train Your
but
Dragon, but
sure,
I
that's
guess,
very
and you know what?
popular.
And I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite. I mean, I probably do every day anyway. If it's not an animated Pixar movie, I don't give a shit about it. I'm gonna be honest with you. You could tell me that How to Train Your Dragon is some person at work told us about it, and I was like, oh, it's a good movie. Yeah, right. What else have you said is correct? I'll
I
explain
don't even
later.
give a shit about the Pixar movies. But anyway,
I
say
haven't
what
either in a
now?
long time.
Um anyway, so I have two more bullet points here, and they're pretty quick. So one is this was the era of DVDs, baby. The era of DVDs, even though they technically came out at the very end of the 90s. This was the time to shine of DVDs. And it gave us, for the first time ever, full seasons of TV shows that you could buy.
Yeah.
That was not a thing. I didn't even know the word season until this
Yeah.
period of
So
time.
for the people who don't know, which is probably none of you, probably all crusty old people who watch our channel. You know how
Yeah.
you recorded movie, or you know how you watched TV shows back in the day? You watched reruns, you watched when they aired, or you recorded it on a cassette and you watched it at your own leisure in horrible quality. Those were your three ways of doing it.
100%. And yeah, exactly. So that was huge to finally have entire seasons at your disposal, and they were pretty expensive too. Like I remember Friends coming out, and I wanted the second season of Friends because that was one of my favorite seasons, and that bad boy was like 40 or $50. I mean, it was like, what, for a DVD? But it was so cool though. Because prior to that there was like collections of popular episodes or whatever, or the Thanksgiving episodes or Christmas episodes, whatever. But this was a time where actually full seasons were coming out. It was it was a golden age of dramatic TV as well. I say that, but then I only have two shows to back up my my statement. But there was Dexter and Breaking Bad, which are two big ones for most of the world's population. So in all honesty, those two are that make up for everything right there. But there was others as well.
House.
Sure, House, Sex in the City. Really, that was 90s, but also it flourished in the 2000s as well. Oz, which I never saw, but I would always see the seasons sitting on the shelf. As well as that other show, which I'm pretty sure came out in the 2000s as well, early 2000s, which was the Wire, I think. So I don't know, it got crazy. And what was that one?
24.
Prison Break 24, sure. And obviously, CSI had a time and a place as well, before it was like I before E, except after C. Down. Yeah.
I am gonna find the one that got away.
Exactly.
What was the one show? Was it Supernatural, the one with Jared Padalecki?
Yes.
That one too.
Indeed.
That's still going, I think. Or either still going, or
I think it's just
recently.
about to end. I know, it's insane. And like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, all that kind of stuff as well. So dramatic TV, big time for dramatic TV. If 90s was the time of sitcoms, 2000s is the time for dramatic TV, and that just keeps getting more and more true as time goes on. Now there's too many TV shows to watch, but
yeah, people seem to like TV shows more than movies. They say movies are too long to watch, but these idiots will sit here and binge a whole season in a day.
I can't stand those people. I would love to just like punch their teeth out, I swear. And the final thing is the music. Now here's the thing. I struggled with this because this was a period of time in my life where the music was so trash that I had to go back in time and start listening to 60s, 70s, 80s music. You know what I mean? So that doesn't really say too much for the music, but I will talk about one band, unless another one comes to mind. But I mean, there was some stuff. There was like Uncle Cracker, follow me and everything is all right.
Now
I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. And Eminem, Kid Rock.
I fucking love Eminem. I don't care for Kid Rock so much, but
nobody does. Even Kid Rock probably hates Kid Rock. But yeah, Eminem and 8 Mile came out, and so there was some good music, but not a lot. It got real rap focused around this time,
and it still is. I don't know how we have in over 20 years.
It's more so R&B and whatnot, sort of
today.
Yeah,
because I really don't follow it, so I couldn't tell you. But I
don't really either. But
I still really see
less
rap
focused.
Okay. Because
it's still pretty rap
like 20 fucking years. That's all people listen to. And it's like,
yeah,
there can't be that much variety in this genre to satiate every musical craving you have. I mean, again, that might be a surface level examination of it. I'm sure there's some to it, but I'm talking about the mainstream bullshit as I sit here and listen to pop punk garbage. So, I mean, you know what? I'm just a hypocrite. Continue.
Yeah, correct. Also, I mentioned I forgot to show this, the golden age of the James Bond games, right?
Yeah.
This was so for Game Boy Advance. For PS2, it was beautiful, but that was unrelated, but I was going to forget to show it. Yeah, so I'm going to mention one band, and I've started to get into them a little bit recently, and that are the Masked Marauders, the Knot, led by the motherfucking Corey Taylor, Slipknot. So Slipknot is a band. I remember my first experience with them. Their first self-titled album came out in '99. So the bulk of their career was in the Knots, right? The Knots, Slipknot,
Slipknotty.
Anyway, so I was in shop class, and everybody around this time, like, Slipknot was becoming a thing. This was in high school. I was in 9th grade, and even though they had been around for a few years prior to that point, it was just like I would hear about them, and there was a kid that I sat by that would wear Slipknot shirts all the time, and he's just like, you hear how they have 9 members, and most of them just hit beer kegs on stage, like all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, what? Why? And I'm like, look at them. Like, I looked at them, like, they look creepy. They scare me. Look at the clown. What are they, murderers? What's going on here? And then I would listen to some of the music, and then I didn't feel any better about life. And and so that was my first experience with them. Fast forward multiple years, for the longest time I would say, oh, I like Duality, and that's it, which was a lie, because when I really started to dive into it, I'm like, oh, well, I forgot about that song and that one, and so on and so forth. Now, long story short, over the last few weeks, I every time I drove, I would listen to their music. So I made my way through all, 5 of their albums, and now I have, I don't know, 40 songs in my walking playlist from them, I think, something like that. So
that'll get you moving.
I certainly don't like everything by them, but I said certainly, and it took that as meaning Siri.
Wow. What an idiot. Not you.
Correct. So that was so they were just a big thing. They represented for a lot of people, not me at the time, but sort of like the anger of the youth, and a lot of people credit them as, you know, getting them through really tough times in their life because they had a place to exert all their anger, is that music and the concerts and all that kind of stuff, because that was their general sort of style. And you know, so they probably stopped some school shooters out there that would have maybe have done it otherwise. Because I get that. I totally get that. I used to put my anger into Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
And if I was super angry, that's what I would listen to. But yeah, I totally Slipknot is that same sort of thing. So, and they have endured. That's the biggest thing. They've endured. They're, you know, self-titled was 99 and they're still huge. And even before that, they technically had an album way before that in the early 90s that just isn't an official album. So they've been around forever. Mostly all the same band. There's been some changes as of late, but due to deaths and firings and stuff, but whatever. So I think that's really cool. I would have been remiss if I went through this discussion and didn't mention Slipknot, because to me, they stand out certainly as a 2000s band, as well as Marilyn Manson, even though his time to shine really was in the 90s. So I debated with myself 90s. About that.
But yeah, I could see it from I could see the argument from both perspectives. I think when Hot Topic rose to prominence, it sort of gave him more of a, surely as far as merchandise is concerned, more of an outlet for people to see him.
Yep, definitely.
But see, like a lot of these topics that we're talking about today, that we've covered it or hit a lot of these bells in some way, shape, or form previously. So, I mean, thinking toward the end of this episode, we're going to start wrapping things up. I have to. I think we definitely have talked about a lot of these things before. And the reason why we've talked about a lot of these things before is because we spent the majority of our lives in the 2000s, and this is just what we know. So that's why it just always gets referenced. You know, like I had this for show and tell, but it's like, how many times am I going to show my iPod that I've already shown? Right. How many times am I going to, so how many times am I talking about Xbox? So
that was going to be a bullet point as well, was the original iPods. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to do it, because how many times have I talked about iPods? So yeah, that was definitely made it a little bit difficult.
It was just cool because a majority of the early Noughties then, 2000, 2009, it was just so much innovation in such a short period of time. We went from in the very early 2000s to the Sony Walkman being your standard way to listen to music. And within 5 years, this became the standard so quickly. And then 5 years later, the phone became the standard, and that was gone. And that's where we're kind of stuck at. So I think the Noughties were really a transitionary time period into the modern day. So it was almost like it's a puberty phase. We grew up figuratively and literally in that time period. So I think it's very interesting. And that's kind of really all I wanted to say about that. We've talked about video games. We've talked about some notable movies and some music, pop culture stuff, a lot of the food things. You know, it was apparently
I was doing some research last night, and I don't remember this at all, but there is something called cereal straws in this time. Apparently.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
I never used them, but
I don't think I ever had them, but I remember them. And I remember thinking it's just gonna get soggy anyway. Like, that's stupid. And then, you had the bowls with the straw in there, so you drink the milk after, which
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah. And I should have done a little bit of research to see what kind of cereals were out around this time, because if they were popular, I certainly had them.
Do you remember
Oreo O's probably first came out?
Did I mention ever about my love for Oreo O's?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I have some very controversial opinions about Oreos.
So when Oreo O's came out, Oreo remember that commercial? And there was like the big fat cream guy walking around. CG. I'm gonna insert a clip.
Introducing the Cream Seed, you creamy tasting marshmallow bits for a richer, creamier chocolatey taste. New Extreme Cream Oreo O's.
Oh my
And,
God.
so we got the cereal, and it was my favorite cereal just ever. It was so, I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
really taste too much like Oreo, but it was a really good combination. I like that chocolate with just a
Yeah.
little pinpoint of vanilla on top. And it was just really, really good. And then
Yeah.
Post took it away.
Yeah.
And I signed that was one of the only food petitions I've ever signed. Signed
I
a
think
food
I probably
petition.
signed petitions for that as well.
I went on the mailing list to where if
Yeah.
it ever came back, I would be emailed about it. And then it came back and I didn't get emailed about it. But
Those bastards.
I know. So, and then there was a period of time where my mom worked at the Post like factory, and we'd get free Post cereal. Of course, it was the era where they didn't have Oreo O's at that time, and I've never lived that down. So funny you mention it, and I would have never thought about it.
Yeah. So whatever.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
there was probably some notable.
Is there anything else
like that
you wanted to mention before we get out of here?
I did, and I completely forgot with the cereal talk for some reason. So I guess it's not that important. But all right, that's it. Good day to all, and to all a good night. God, I wish I could remember what I was going to say. But what is everybody out there's favorite memories of the Noughts, huh? Let us know.
There's a lot happened in those 9 years.
A lot. Yeah, a lot did. I remember what I was going to say. In conclusion, I guess you have to mention 9/11 in closing.
Well, yeah,
it's not something to be nostalgic
I don't
about.
want to be, yeah.
And I don't want to bring down the mood either. But
kind of did.
It's something that happened in 2001, unfortunately. And I was in 5th grade at the time.
We stand together and we remember in conclusion.
Indeed. Lucas was in 3rd grade, I believe. And yeah, so that's it, I guess. But again, don't want to bring down the mood. So everybody out there, let us know your favorite memory of the 2000s.
I know you got
some. Or did you not grow up in the 2000s? Were you born or early 2000s, the Noughts? Were you born in 2010 and you're watching this? That's cool. So let us know. Did any of the things we talked about surprise you in any way? Let us know. So yeah, and if you are liking the content, then comment, like, share, subscribe, do whatever.
Do whatever you please.
I'm not your boss.
Not yet.
I don't tell you what to do.
Yep. Anyways, guys, really appreciate it. We appreciate you sitting through us with all the nostalgia talk that we always do. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.